Welcome to Between Data and Risk podcast. Today we'll be talking about Metaverse and ways it can add value to businesses. To discuss with us different aspects of value in Metaverse, we've invited Nicolas Babin, a serial entrepreneur, executive, and board member who has spanned startups to multinational tech giants with experience in Asia, North America, and Europe. Stay tuned.
If you're a business owner or senior manager, you probably had more than enough about all the wonderful opportunities awaiting you in the era of digitalization.
Whether it is big data, cloud, data science, or whatever buzzword is currently trendy.
If you would like to hear someone dissecting these claims and showing you what it actually takes to improve business processes, you're in the right place.
This is Between Data and Risk, where we discuss real-life examples of what works and what doesn't in the world of business operations.
Hi, I'm your friendly neighborhood data guy, Dr. Marian, and with me is my co-host, Artur Cognition Shared Solutions Chief Risk and Strategy Officer.
Hello.
Welcome to this episode of Between Data and Risk. Today we'll be talking about value creation in the Metaverse, and we're excited to have with us today our guest, Nicolas Babin, consultant and business strategist, an expert in entrepreneurship, artificial intelligence and robotics, and digital transformation, who agreed to share his experiences with us. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you very much for agreeing to come and talk to us. We are really excited to learn more because everybody's talking about Metaverse these days. Not all of it is, let's say, very optimistic, but we think that this or other form of Metaverse is the future. So our question to you as an expert is like, what is your vision of Metaverse evolution? Like, what will it actually be? How does Metaverse differ from website, which is also like, you could think omnipresent?
Or Second Life, for that matter.
Well, that's exactly how I was going to start, because I was going to tell you that to start actually talking about the Metaverse, you need to understand where we're coming from. So where we're coming from was the launch in the 2002 of Second Life, which had at the beginning an impact. Some brands got involved. Sony, for example, who I worked for at the time, we launched Home, which was a competitor to Second Life, and we could see that we could get engagement from communities because it was different, and because it was you created an environment where people could walk, could go to the movies, could have a coffee, things like that, obviously virtually. What we missed at that time was the fact that number one, internet was extremely slow. It was not the connection we used to have, and number two, so technology was really I wouldn't say a problem, but was something that limited us to get a better experience, because it's all about experience. And the second point was the fact that at the time, the only way of paying or creating an economy was to enter your own credit card into the system and then get charged for your credit card with all the risks that you could think of, especially back in 2002. So we couldn't get an economy. We had limitation from the technology, basically no return on investment. And so it was not viable, right? But it was at the time where we were still thinking, what's the best business model for internet? I don't know if you remember those years, but it was really strange. You could get everything for free, and companies were thinking, well, hang on, why should we give all this for free when actually it's our bread and butter? So that's where we come from. So 20 years later, we have to give him credit for that. Mark Zuckerberg came and said, I'm going to create a metaverse. But people need to understand that Meta, previously Facebook, is not the metaverse. It's one of the metaverse environments that we can find. But it's true that at least he put the idea back. It's not his idea. It's something that obviously has been around for 20 years. But he put it back into the light, and that we can give you credit for. today we have less, I would say almost no limitation in terms of technology, because every single technology that's been used in the metaverse is actually today maturing. So I'm talking about all the VR, virtual reality, augmented reality, extended reality. We're talking about Internet of Things. We're talking about infrastructure for data, which is, I hear a lot of people talk about the metaverse, but what they forget about is the fact that you need to have a good infrastructure, because all the data coming from all these different places, again, as I mentioned, the realities, the emails, the videos, the photos, all these things, the avatars that you create, all these type of data need to come into a unique place, and for that you need to have the structure of that. So basically, what I'm saying here is the technology is now maturing, and it's available for everyone. I mean, you want an Oculus goggle, you have it. You want basically to create your own avatar, you can have it. You want to create your own NFTs, non-fungible tokens, you have it. You have the blockchain technology, which is now pretty much understood by all, which is even getting better in terms of crypto, because we've heard all about all the servers that needed to be cooled down and all this, so very bad for the environment. Now they have the second version, which is getting better. So the technology side is now coming to fruition, and it's working. But what's the most important to me, it's the value creation, and I think that's why we're here.
Yes, exactly.
The value creation that you can have on the metaverse. As a marketer, from my days long time ago in business schools, we were told that when you market a product, when you market a service, when you market a company, you need to make it available to all, and make sure that at least it's available when the person is ready to purchase, or is engaged in getting information about the product, the service, or the company. Here, using the metaverse basically is giving you a different channel that you need to think. So I know you started the podcast by saying, there's a lot of negativity around it, and it's true. But as a company, and that's why you've seen today the Nikes, the Carrefour, the banks, the insurance companies, all these pouring in, the real estate companies pouring into the metaverse, because it's a new channel that you're going to see more and more the millennials and even generation after that going into this. So can you afford today to say, no, I'm not going to go into the metaverse? It's almost like saying, like when I was with Sony, we don't want to go into retail, right? That would have been
the only thing that I meant by the it's not about negativity, it's about some, I would say, financial problems. So the name metaverse, if I remember correctly, comes from early 90s, and it was Neil Stephenson who came up with it. So what I meant is maybe the current incarnation of metaverse, as you said, and big kudos to Mark for bringing it, let's say, and give it in another shot. So the only thing that I meant, but maybe it won't be metaverse by Meta, maybe it will be metaverse by someone else because of this financial institutions. That's why I think this conversation is so relevant, irrespectively who will be the technical provider of metaverse. So
exactly.
But that's how I
let's make this clear. Because Nicolas, you mentioned a very important thing, that metaverse is not Meta, right? There will be a lot of other providers, and what is we recently I spoke to a gentleman who actually has a company creating a lot of content for metaverse, and he's creating platforms for sharing live events and concerts and sports events. So obviously he will be providing a lot of his own technology infrastructure, not just the content itself, but a large piece of the metaverse experience will be dependent on his stuff. What is Meta actually going to provide, or another company that's going to maybe what are they going to provide? Is there an infrastructure, like a basic platform that is required, or is it going to be an amalgamation of contributions from different providers?
Yeah, so that's actually a very good question. What you see today is actually several environments, I would call that. Meta is one of them. What they are going to provide is still very unclear. I think Mark Zuckerberg maybe has an idea, but he hasn't shared it clearly to all of us. But what you can see, he has his own environment, and you see avatars walking in. You see also physical people going into it. So it's really, again, what we call the phygital world, where you have the physical and digital elements all together. Nike is using Roblox for Nike Land. So it's another environment where you can go to the Nike shops. You can buy shoes that are totally virtual. Actually, I think they sold their first pair for like $10,000. So it's after having purchased a company that was only making virtual shoes. So you have Decentraland, you have a lot of different environments. So that's the vision of today. But again, let's understand why we're here. We're starting. It's the really, I would say it's V2, V1 being Second Life, and that's V2 of the metaverse. We're going to have V3, V4, V5. It's going to continue. And my vision of all this is that at one point there's going to be an aggregation of all these environments, and the metaverse will become one. But today, because it's really the beginning, everybody's trying its own way of working. I mean, it was like the beginning of the web, pretty much.
Yes.
When everybody was doing this. And again, we're not in a revolution type of scenario here. It's an evolution. We had Web 1, Web 2, now it's Web 3. But we're not smarter than people 100 years ago. We just have different technologies. We just have learned different things. But again, things that used to work 100 years ago for the environment 100 years ago will not work for today's environment. And so we're benefiting from what we've learned in the past, and we're pretty much copying, and what you see today with Metaverse is exactly what we all, at least I have, because I'm older, but what I have seen, when I remember a time when I didn't have internet, I didn't have emails and everything, and I've seen the changes of all this, and that's my vision. I think Metaverse and Web3 is really going to make it the same way we have seen with internet and Web2.
So when we're comparing it to internet, I would like to, because we're talking about entering this let's say ocean and trying to generate value and get value. I'm not, let's say, maybe I wasn't professionally active, but I know about the .com bubble that was created and burst. So, what is the risk that we will see something like .com bubble, and how to avoid it? Because now you need to balance between over investing into something which only on the surface has any value, and missing out because those who build their presence in the web, they clearly won, but those who got overexcited by it. Couple of fortunes, I think, were built and burned.
Absolutely. So the biggest risk we've found in 2000, I was working at the time, and I actually went into a startup specialized into payments online, because I really could see that that's what was missing for us. And basically what we lost sense of reality in 2000, and that's to me the biggest risk we could face again with Metaverse. What happened in 2000, we had economy difficulties for countries and everything. And suddenly investors realized that, wow, you have all these startups, you have all these great ideas, which were great ideas, but with the limitation of technology that I mentioned before. And so they poured money into companies that honestly didn't have a business model. I mean, I'm being very serious here for people who say, well, it's impossible. I was there in the year 2000. I was helping investors. I was helping companies, as I mentioned. And they didn't have a business model. They didn't know how to make money on the internet. But investors thought, well, we don't have any other place to go. So they poured money into companies that honestly took their money in and didn't make it at the end because it was not based on anything real. And that's the biggest risk to me that I can see today. Because again, because technology is there, because we have a business model that works, with NFTs and everything, what the biggest risk we could find is that we overestimate the potential of the metaverse. Again, let's keep our heads cool and make sure that at least we give time to time, and that's the most important. Let's see how people are going to behave with the metaverse. Let's see how customers are going to come in. I'm very encouraged with the fact that huge companies, again, I mentioned Carrefour, but Nike, huge banks are coming in, real estate, all these businesses, pretty much every single sector is now coming into the metaverse. And so they are investing very large amount of money, which is concrete and real. And so I'm more encouraged this time around than I was in 2000. In 2000, I honestly, I remember one meeting with investors and I said, guys, I'm blown away. You're giving valuation of companies that honestly do not even know how they're going to make a penny out of their product or service. And so I literally was speechless. I couldn't even help with consulting ideas or anything because it was not based on anything. Whereas today, at least you see large companies that really understand and can't afford to lose too much money because shareholders are going to be upset because of all this. And these companies are coming in thinking, we are now expanding our marketing, expanding our sales into a platform that didn't exist before. We need to start thinking about different ways of doing business. That's the digital transformation world that we're in today. Every single sector is transforming, and banking and insurance businesses are transforming as well with the use of NFTs, cryptocurrencies. I mean, basically anything around blockchain technologies. And that's where I believe it's going to work because those banks, it's not going to be done overnight, but those banks are going to look at it and think, okay, now our business is evolving. We need to allow people to use crypto to pay back their loans, to buy their cars and all these things. So they're going to start gradually putting together a strategy which will be based on something real. So there is a risk. I don't want to say there's no risk. There's definitely a risk. But it's always better to know where the problem comes from or where the risk comes from. So at least you can be prepared for to handle it.
I have a question because you mentioned, sorry, the last one, and I'll pass it to you. Because Nicolas, you mentioned, I would say, blockchain and crypto a couple of times, and just a couple of days we had FTT and FTX implosion. And you also mentioned, because this is a topic that we discuss with Artur from time to time, you mentioned that like now it's time, in 2000, people were investing into companies which didn't have a business model. It was not real. Like I personally have trouble seeing reality of crypto currencies. Yes, yeah. Because it's a set of number that its value is, in my simple eyes, purely speculative and based on what people are, which is most of the exchange. Probably someone can counter that if you take the stock price, it's also based on wishful thinking of more or less people. But behind the stock exchange, at least in the end, there is a company. In cryptocurrencies, like
there's no asset around it. You're right.
But it's a you can destroy one like overnight, and FTP,
which we've just seen.
So yeah. I'm just wondering, like, is cryptocurrency, I don't know, value in metaverse somehow substantiated, or I'm wondering why is it let's say popping up in this conversation so often?
Oh, because we're talking about adding value, and the value you can have and you can calculate is today based on the tools for the economy to thrive, right? And the only tools that you can find today in the metaverse is blockchain technology tools. So like cryptocurrencies, NFTs, which are different, but based on the same technology. And so what I said earlier on was give time to time. I think we're seeing the first step, and I 100% agree. I give classes to a business school here in France, and the students always ask me, should we invest in crypto? And my answer is like, it's obviously I don't want to make lose any money. You should maybe put a little bit money in crypto and see how it goes. Because again, if you want to start a business, if you want to start a new venture, you need to start walking before you run, right? And that's what we see today with crypto. We can see that. Look at how banks have been around for hundreds of years, right? They've always done the same business the same way. Today, every other business is changing the way they're doing business. So it's time for banks to start thinking about new ways of creating value. I believe what we see today with crypto and blockchain technologies is really the V1 of all this. And yes, it's based on no assets that you cannot compare with assets. Everything you said is 100% true. However, you have a speculative way of handling cryptos that I've seen people gain a lot of money, lose everything, or lose a lot of money. But at least it gives us ideas of what could work and should not work, right? And I'm being very prudent here. And that's why, you cannot say, you cannot unlink, if you want, blockchain technologies with the metaverse. They go together.
No.
And if
blockchain is a technology which can be used for multiple. We worked with a company which was preparing like sort of green certificates based on blockchain because of this uniqueness. So blockchain as a technology, I understand it may have a lot of different applications. I was just wondering how it links to will the cryptocurrency be a currency of metaverse? Maybe I should simplify my question.
Yeah, that's what I believe. That's what it is today. That again, Second Life, credit cards, metaverse, crypto. That's how I see it. But again, crypto is going to evolve, and I believe we're going to see less and less variations, because today it's either super high, super low. It's yeah. I mean, Elon Musk wakes up in the morning and say, "I'm going to use crypto to sell my cars." I mean, people can buy Teslas with crypto, and crypto goes through the roof. The next day, he wakes up and said, "Actually, I'm done with that." But crypto is dead. So that's why we need to get some senses around this. But honestly, today you talk about metaverse, you need to talk about crypto and NFTs.
So one of the big advantages, I think, of this discussion that we're having is that it can give potential users a view, because you mentioned yourself at the beginning that in order to sell a product, first you have to make it available to users, and that means not only putting it out there, but also getting people to understand it, right? So with banks, you spoke a lot about banks, and I think that the big difference between the dot-com bubble and the kind of massive uncontrolled investment in buzzwords back then, and what we see now is that banks also have evolved their understanding as potential users and also providers of the technology, because there's a lot of talk about innovation. They're a bit more mature. Not only banks, but all big institutions, they're a bit more mature in understanding how innovation actually happens, how you approach this. But I'm not talking about a user now as a person going in, but let's take a kind of small to medium company. They don't have enough clout to go into metaverse and create their own corner, but they want to benefit from the kind of boom. How can we make this more available to businesses and present them with an understanding that will not require them to hire a metaverse expert team, but still, how we do with no code now. You don't really need an
I was going
IT
to complain.
department. Exactly.
Yeah.
So great mind think alike. With no code, people can just create a program. So how do we do this with Metaverse?
All right. So low code, no code. I'm very familiar with that because I created a company called Affinity Initiative based in London, where we do low code, no code platform using a bot named Sue, which is really AI based bot that anybody can use. It's very easy. You don't need the IT teams. Exactly as you said. That's where I wanted to start. So it was exactly we're totally in phase on this one. But you have to think about it. AI, 1955 started the idea, right? I started working on it in 1996 with Sony. We launched IBO in 1999. We were part of the first ones. We had to start everything from scratch. I'm talking about real-time OS, operating system. We had to really invent everything because at the time there was nothing. So let's say even we take 1990 from the start of real work on AI, at least real work that everybody could see, and low code, no code, which was launched, 3-4 years ago, right? So you're talking about at least 20 years between those two. So what I'm saying here is that companies that want to enter the metaverse, today they have the possibility of using, again, I mentioned Decentraland, Roblox. They can just, have a small piece. It's almost like renting an apartment, right? And they can say, okay, I just want a little space here. But it's true that today you need people who understand. You need experts who will tell you what to do, how to program on it. You need to use technologies such as AR, VR. And if you don't have any experts or anybody in your team that don't understand this, it's true, it's hard. And that's why, I've said that before today. When we see an evolution, at least that's my vision. The evolution of the metaverse was we are going to have the same thing as low code, no code in the metaverse. We won't wait for 20 years, but maybe in 4 or 5 years, there will be companies, and I'm sure today there are startups. I've already started to work on easier way of getting involved in the metaverse. But as of today, you need people who understand it. And actually, I think it's a good thing because, if it was too easy immediately, then I think then the future of the metaverse could be at risk again, because it's really important that at least people understand, see the limitations, see the potentials, and the risks, obviously, and behind all this, then start building a proper business. And that's why, I'm really glad you mentioned low code, no code, because that was exactly the comparison I wanted to give between the two.
But I have two questions. One, let's say simpler, and another one maybe a bit broader. The simpler is like having these companies entering now, those who can afford it, so to speak. Doesn't it create at the very beginning like this dispersion? So we will have this lord class of haves and have mores, and we will have then pariahs who will come to get the scraps because the market. You mentioned that the main value as of today it's of Metaverse as a marketing channel. So the cake will be divided between the big boys, and everybody else will be left with the scraps. That's my worry. And the second one, like other than marketing channel, because we started this chat is like extracting value from Metaverse. Is it just a marketing channel, or is it more? And if it's more, what more it is?
So today, you're absolutely right. Big companies are going to benefit more from it. But it's like with digital transformation. Before COVID, companies that have started to work on digital transformation got themselves much better during COVID and after COVID than companies who were hesitating, right? And this is exactly where we find ourselves with. We have companies that are hesitating in getting in, and they are missing the train. It's I've seen it in my career many times before. when you have a vision, and when you see that large companies are investing heavily, when you see that you're getting more engagement, you're getting more loyalty, it's like gamification type based of applications. It's important to at least start thinking about a strategy around it. I really enjoy working on different strategies with companies when you have the long-term one, the medium-term, and the very short-term one, and it all depends, and your focus is going to be different basically on the one you choose. So yes, big companies are going to get most of the pie, and the others are going to be left with crumbs. But it's just right now, right? We're talking here about at least 5-year vision on the metaverse, and in 5 years, it's going to balance itself out. That I'm pretty convinced. In terms of the second point, sorry, just because you had two questions, so I have two answers.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
In terms of the second point, is it only a marketing ploy today? Yes and no. And companies who have understood that, and when I'm talking about marketing, I'm talking also about communication ploy, which means that you can benefit from announcing the fact that you are present on the metaverse, or you have a strategy on the metaverse, that you start planning to have tools or services or solutions that can be available on the metaverse. So it would be stupid not to use this strategy, because at least you can make your company talk about things that normally the press would not be interested. It's hot topic basically what I'm saying. And so, but it's also a different one. I mean, I'm talking about Nike and their sports shoes they just sold with Artifact. They bought that company Artifact for 100 millions or billions of dollars, and their first pair of shoes, it was sold for $10,000. So it's starting to think, and now what they've done is not only they sold their virtual pair for $10,000, but they made the virtual pair now a real one, right? So it's helping them by being on the metaverse. It's helping them testing the market at low cost. Of course, here we're talking about Nike, so it's not low cost because they bought Artifact for a lot of money. But smaller companies, and I work a lot with startups, I say, well, why don't you have a small AR with augmented realities where you don't need the goggles, you can just do it on the internet, but you can at least see how people react. It's like a sandpit, but real life, but actually where you don't spend money. When we were Sony, and again, sorry, I worked a long time for Sony, so I talk a lot about them.
I worked in Sony too, so I understand the sentiment.
Okay, so you probably remember when we were thinking about new products, we had to make a prototype. Prototype cost a lot of money. After the prototype, we had to test it. You had to check the markets. So all this costs a lot of money. When you're in a metaverse, it's digital, it's virtual, so it doesn't. I'm not saying it's free, but it costs much less money. You have real-time feedback from customers, from prospects for all this. Was before with Sony, if you remember, it was terrible. To get feedback, we used to hire 20 people around the room. It was costing a lot of money. We used to present them the product. We used to see how they would behave with the product and all this. And then we would make a report out of it. And then we would go back to the engineers and say, this is what we found out. It was, that was my job, but it was hard job.
I worked for global marketing for Sony Mobile, so we had some access to this data, and I can confirm that it was strenuous. Like when we were thinking how to even market the product, getting the data from the users and getting it in time. It was I remember tricky because we didn't want to announce what we have in packet so it doesn't leak. So timing it in such a way that we show it to this selected group of people. When we get this data to us, analyze it, and have time to still prepare the messaging based on this feedback, it was strenuous. It was a challenge on its own. The timing. I'm not talking about the cost yet, but the timing itself.
Well, when you launched the mobile division, I remember very well with Sony because I was at the time in charge of IBO, and I remember that in the UK, at least, the head of mobile was a very good friend of mine, Jay Shinadora. I don't know the name, but and Jay and I were very close, and he would tell me, he said, you know, it costs a lot of money, it takes so much time, and it's so frustrating because then you have to translate it into engineer words. So we use Six Sigma at the time to make it sure that at least the engineers would understand that. But here, you don't need Six Sigma. You have real-time information. It doesn't cost as much money, and it's much quicker. So why not doing it? So I hope I've answered your two questions.
Yes, actually, with the second one, you also answered a bit of the first one, because this is something that you don't need probably ton of software engineers to do. This is a service which should be available pretty quickly for everyone, and
Exactly.
Improving business processes and customer interaction through metaverse seems like a viable idea, and also the cost saving. So it's actually a very good answer to both of them. Thank you very much. Sorry, Artur, I know I'm hijacking. You've been excited about this, and I'm hijacking it again.
It's democratizing and almost commoditizing this whole process of introducing. And I actually, I'm very very excited to see that there are already companies. I've seen a few kind of startups going into the space of making content creation for now, maybe not value creation, but content creation more available already for users, even before we have metaverse ready, right? But I would like to touch upon a slightly different facet now. We've spoken about customers going in there. We've spoken about companies moving their customer-facing kind of angle into the metaverse. But now let's look at the back of a company and the workers, because there's a lot of talk about moving the business, the actual work, into the metaverse. How do you see the value for a company itself rather than its interaction with clients? Will companies be moving their operations to metaverse, and how to extract value there, or maybe not necessarily extract value, but maybe lower cost, because that's the second side of the same coin, right?
Yep. That's another very good question, because extremes never work in business. So moving all your business from the way it works today, physical way, to all the way to metaverse only, to me, it will be a mistake, obviously. You need to do that gradually. You have different environments, if I could call. You have, in any company, you have what we call the cash cow, which is 80% of your business, the business that creates money. It's been creating money for a long time, creating value. And that's the business that you need to continue hiring for and investing in, because you know that this is what's going to make your life pretty much in the next 3 to 5 years. Then you have the second environment where it makes about the last 20% of the business. It's not mature yet, but you need to recruit different type of people than you have for the first business, because the first business is really well installed and they know how it works. The salespeople, they make it normal. I mean, it's their daily life. Whereas in the second business, it's a little bit disruptive because it's different than the first business. So you need different type of people, and you need different focus and different ways of approaching deals. And then you have the third business, or the third environment, if I can call that, which is 0% of your revenue, but you know that in about 5-7 years' time, it's going to replace the second one. So the second one will replace the first one in the next 3 to 5 years and will become the main business. And the third one will become the second one. So it's very important for any companies that works on strategy to have that pipe of the three environments always full. You always have a main business that brings 80%. You always have a second business that brings 20%. And I'm just, it could be 70, 20, I mean, whatever, you understand what I mean. And the third business that brings 0, but where you have totally different people than in the first or second business, because the business in the third one, it's so disruptive. You need people who have like entrepreneurship mindset in order to launch it. This is what we did at Sony. Again, Aibo was the third type of business. For a long time, we didn't make any money. we were all entrepreneurs because it was a different type of products, but we had to make it within the big Sony family. So we used the Sony engineers, we used the Sony factories, we used the Sony retail channels, but we didn't make any money. But because at the time, always, if I can make the because Aibo never became second or first business, but like PlayStation did, right? When they launched PlayStation, it was Oga-san, who was the CEO of Sony, said, I don't want the Sony name on any game products, because for him, games were not proper. So frivolous, you can look at the PlayStation 1 or 2, there's no Sony name on it. Because that was his third environment where nobody was making any money, but PlayStation became second and became first. Look what works today for Sony, it's PlayStation, right? That's exactly what I'm saying here. So bringing all your business into the metaverse is exactly what I'm saying here. Is no, absolutely not. Metaverse today is the third environment, which will become probably the second and maybe the first,
for some businesses.
For some, exactly. And that's why we need to keep, reason in terms of these businesses. That's what's most important.
But I meant slightly deeper, because I understand that you cannot just forget about physical market and just move everything to metaverse. But that's still touching on the customer facing facet of a company. What I meant was if I have a bank, for example. I have I've already set up my metaverse branch. I have my metaverse customer portals, everything. But now I'm thinking, how about I move my internal operations? So, for example, my meeting rooms or my internal systems where into the metaverse, so that people who work within the company, instead of using Zoom, instead of using some dashboards, use them in metaverse. Do you think that side of thing is going to create value there?
Yes, it will definitely create value, because you're in a hybrid work environment situation. Since the COVID, less and less people want to be in the office. Now it's obviously with Elon Musk's announcement saying that everybody at Twitter needs to be back in the office immediately. Maybe it will change, but I don't believe so. I think now we've gone too far in terms of giving flexibility to employees and also to companies to make it work. So yes, I believe it will bring value, because you'll get more engaged employees, you'll get more productivity, and therefore your balance sheet is going to see the benefits of that. So definitely yes. One point that's really important to keep in mind is that meetings, organizations, challenges and all this, yes, you can manage them today. In terms of balance sheet and what you bring into the company, as of today, to me, and I'm going back to my earlier point with the three environments, it's a bit too early for me to say that a company should just, put all their business there. But I agree with you. I think entirely the way of doing business or engaging more employees or creating more productivity, creating more value, you can definitely start using the metaverse for that. Yes.
Because for me, I've always kind of before COVID, I had this maybe not a dream but a nightmare of having to go into the office, which is really a dark hangar, rows of seats, and you just sit on the seat, get your goggles on, and suddenly you're in a nice office. But obviously, after COVID, you wouldn't need to go to a hangar; you just stay at home, which is probably equally bleak.
Absolutely,
yeah. Sorry. Yeah, getting into this office, getting this office into metaverse solves, for me at least, one very important downside of working from home is this communication where the one thing I miss from office is that interactions which required 5 minutes of walking over to someone's desk, asking a simple question, walking back, continuing with your job. Now, obviously, you need to schedule time with them. There are various platforms that are trying to solve it. But having that that ability to do it in the metaverse, at the same time having the control. If I don't want to be disturbed, I don't I don't just put a label on my desk. If you disturb me, I'm going to kill you. But which I actually had in my office. But being able to programmatically have and do not disturb function, I think that will provide a lot of control to the office environment.
Mm-hmm. But again, you and I think the same way, in the sense that we're used of having meetings with people in the office, and that's the way we've learned how to do business. Think about a 15-year-old kid today. I'm sorry, I'm saying kid, a teenager. A 15-year-old teenager today, what does he do? He goes onto the game platform, hopefully a PlayStation 5. And what does he do? He interacts with his friends that he has seen at school, so people he knows. And again, it's the same type of image that the metaverse is going to create. You can be in that dark hangar, and you can put your goggles on, which they know how to do now, and they are actually expecting that, because that's how they've been raised, pretty much. The dads buy the PlayStation and the kids play with the dads, right? And so they don't care anymore. You see kids in the street with their cell phone, and they are playing, with their friends who are everywhere on the planet. And so the traditional way of working, which is you have your colleague next to you, and it's very nice, comfortable, because also you have a question, you turn around, you ask the question, everything. These teenagers, these kids, basically, for them, it's not natural. What's natural is being online and asking a question on a chat. It's turning around with their goggle and see their friend in the virtual reality world, and communicating with that friend and say, oh yeah, if you go there and you click on that, this is how it's going to work. So the world is changing, but the world has always changed. And so,
yes.
I wrote a book, and for Dr. Marian, you worked with Sony, so that book you would enjoy, actually. It's called The Talking Dog, Immersion in New Technologies. And I explain technology going from 1990 to 2025.
Oh, excellent.
And this is what I explained. So there are 3 chapters, 1990 to today. Today, what we see, and I explain the technology so people are not scared. It's made for everyone, absolutely. I've made sure that at least it was very easy to understand. And then
even I will understand. Thank you.
No, I'm not saying that for you, but I'm saying that for my grandparents. And the third part of the book is about what you're going to see in terms of agriculture, in terms of hotel management, in terms of entertaining, and all these things. And that's why I explain this, because I talk also about marketing and the way the world has always evolved. And this is what we see today. But this evolution might be a little bit faster because we have a different world. We have COVID. We have war in our borders. We have, situations that we have not experienced before. And so what I feel very comfortable, and you would say that I'm very optimistic, and that's probably true. Not naive, but optimistic. But what I see, it's like, yes, we are challenged by new things, but in return, we are offering solutions that help us address those challenges. And Metaverse is one of them. There are many others, and I explained that in my book. I launched my book just before Mark Zuckerberg, so I talked about Second Life in my book, but I was not expecting to go that far. And to 2025, this is where we're going to see the Metaverse maybe starting to really boost, at least becoming bigger. So at least I'm still okay, I think, with my book on my predictions for 2025. Well, but this is what's interesting is really the world has evolved. This is just think about one thing, and that's why I mentioned several times in my book. If our grandparents had said no to electricity or telephone, where we would be today, right? It's just a simple question. And this is where we stand today.
We can start with putting a stone on a stick. It started. Like you had the sharp stick, and then somebody came with an idea. Oh, let's take a sharpened stone and tie it to it. You don't need to get so far as to electricity.
But This is just an example, And so let's say that our grandkids say, "Well, Granddad, why did you say no to the metaverse? It could have been so cool." Well, this is what I mean.
What I think that maybe people like, but correct me if I'm wrong, but people like you, the thought leaders and real, people who think big and have ability to shape the future, aren't, shouldn't it be said loud and clear? And Artur is calling me, a communist for taking such things into account. But let's take open space. Everybody said, "Oh yeah, we will." When Artur said, "Let's move to metaverse," of his nightmare of his, let's move to metaverse. I will think about open space, because let's say the first time I entered the open space, I was just blown away, and it was actually Sony office where we had open space with hot seats. And to be honest, for me, it was the only thing that I regretted about working there. It was open space with hot seats, with not enough space for everybody. So
In
the
which
people
country
who came,
were you?
United Kingdom.
Oh, okay. In Basingstoke?
It was in Hammersmith.
Hammersmith.
And Hammersmith was okay, but when we moved to
Weybridge?
close to no, which was later. It was main Sony. The mobile went to.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember. Close to Ealing. Doesn't matter. But what I wanted to say, there is a ton of research saying open space is bad for trust. Open space is bad for confidence. Open space is bad for communication. And still, companies they stick to open space like to some, I don't know, holy scripture, despite the reality saying no, people didn't react to it as well as marketers of this solution wanted us. Shouldn't we start building fail safes to metaverse early? Like, okay, let's see how people react to it, and let's not force it down their throat. I'm not saying I'm speaking specifically about the working solution, because the customers, if they won't like it, they will just not come. So
absolutely.
Collecting customer feedback is pretty easy, but shouldn't it be said loud and clear? Like, let's not force it.
No, I couldn't agree more with you. It's called being intelligent and thinking, okay, we've tried one thing, it works, it doesn't work, let's pivot. That term that in startups, I created 26 startups, so I failed in a lot of them, in all humility. But there are still about 15 of them that are still alive, and I'm still involved in 7 of them out of the 26. And what I'm saying is, when you see it doesn't work, you tried, because you need to try. You can't. The status quo doesn't work in business, so you need to try things. You see, you try, it doesn't work, you change. Same thing. I know your office in Hammersmith very well, because I used to go there regularly, because I was based in Weybridge for a while. And in the Weybridge office, we did the same thing: open space for everyone, and we kept that mentality of saying, no, we've made one change, we're not going to change again, and that's a mistake. If it doesn't work, then you start rebuilding offices, or maybe you do it differently. And that's all I'm saying with the metaverse and the value creation around the metaverse. Let's be smart about it. Let's look at what works. That's V1. Again, we're going to have V1000, in 100 years. But that's okay. That's okay. At least we would have tried, and we would have seen what worked. And this is where the risk ran in 2000 is we wanted to jump the guns. We wanted to say, okay, this is what's going to work now, when actually there was no basis for the business. So let's make mistakes with the metaverse. Let's understand the mistakes, and let's pivot. That's what I'm saying.
All right.
Now, working kind of making mistakes within a defined risk envelope is kind of a my song that I always sing at any meeting, and it is exactly what we need. So kind of to summarize, we've got a new technology, and obviously the promise is very big.
Yeah.
But so are the risks, which we've discussed. And I'm being a risk guy, I loved hearing about concrete risk and concrete kind of approach to it. And also, there are all these kind of different ways that you can create value, which need to be explored. And it's not only big companies doing it by themselves. Obviously, small companies will get like we have with the startup scene now, and low code, no code. I think it's a great parallel. In terms of kind of learning more, obviously your book, if I remember correctly, the title "The Talking Dog," right? So we can recommend this to our listeners. And are there any other kind of places where people can read more about your ideas and get in contact with you, maybe?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm very involved on LinkedIn. So that's one place. I also have a blog on babinbusinessconsulting.com, and you'll have that's my website, and you have my blog in French and in English. I tweet a lot as well. So if you type Nicolas Babin on Google, you'll see a lot of things. I write quite regularly on a lot of topics beyond my book. So absolutely, and I always answer when I'm contacted. So feel free.
We will link your website and book in the description of this video as well.
Perfect.
Thank you very much for sharing your ideas. It was a very exciting episode, and let's hope it's a kind of a starting point for further discussion, because by no means have we even started to scratch the surface of the topic. And as always, let's hope it was of use to someone. Thank you for listening.
Make sure you read Nicolas's book, The Talking Dog: Immersion in New Technologies. As usual, the link will be available in the notes to this episode.
Also, don't miss the next one, where we'll be talking about digital strategies. To discuss with us practical aspects of developing a digital strategy, we've invited Markus Kühnlein, Head of Digital Business in United Graining Group, one of the world's leading manufacturers of precision machines.
Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or visit pdr.show to find out more about future episodes and guests. You can also check out cognition.llc for more information on Cognition Shared Solutions, our services, and other events hosted by us.
For now, it's thank you from myself, Artur Guja, and my co-host, your friendly neighborhood data guy, Dr. Marian.
Thank you and goodbye.